Thank you so much, Lise, for that wonderful introduction and for all of your work coordinating this terrific festival. Um, I want to begin by acknowledging the challenging times that we all live in, um, the pandemic, the police brutality, the violence against protesters and Black people, and the uprisings. Um, in this climate, oh yeah, and then there's climate change. In this climate, it can be really hard to focus on listening, um, especially maybe to listening to poetry. So I want to ask you today to listen in a particular way, um, a kind of contemplative listening practice. So I'd like to begin with an invitation to let's just breathe together and have a few moments of quiet, of stillness, and bringing awareness to our bodies and the sensations in our bodies. You can do this sitting or standing, and you can leave your eyes open or closed. If you leave them open, just gaze at a spot a few feet in front of you, just softly gaze. And let's take in a breath together. And release it. And breathing in to the count of 3. Hold for 4. And release slowly to the count of 5. Let's do that one more time. Breathing in 1, 2, 3. Hold for 4. And breathing out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now just allow your breath to flow at your own pace. And just begin to notice the sensations of your body. You can gently scan the top of your head, your forehead. Release any tension around your eyes. Let the energy flow down your face, down over your shoulders, your arms, noticing the inside of your body, your lungs gently broadening and shrinking, your stomach, your hips, your legs, and your feet. And then bring your attention back to the screen and the room around you. And as I read these next few poems, I just ask you to notice and pay attention to the sensations that are coming up and the feelings that are coming up. for many years, I wrote poetry that was mostly for my personal, I would say, personal healing. A lot of my earlier poems were about my own personal story and my family history of immigration and struggle with identity and assimilation. And then in more recent years, in the last 10 years or so, um, I really started to see my poetry as a potential for activism, and it became a lot more political. So this poem called Women's Words, I didn't put a year on this, so I don't know exactly when I wrote it, but I think it was actually maybe in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, when I was really involved with the feminist movement at the University of Iowa in Iowa City. Women's Words. Looking into an empty page, sometimes I stall. We send words here and there, words yearning to become hands, hands to hold each other's tears, to catch babies, cradle heads of grandmas and grandpas and brothers and sisters, heaving their last breaths. Hands to hold pens, flowing with blood and spit, laughter and bitter tears. How can these tiny lines on the page make do? The lines on my face, the folds in your hand between thumb and fingers. You call, you sing, and I breathe in and out, and our words become each other. And with words, we bring there, here, and with words, we make do. The next one is called Failure to Assimilate. And this one is in haiku form, and it's a short piece about my father. Failure to assimilate. What if at bedside, on his last day of life, he only wants to sing an old lullaby learned from invaders of his home island, beautiful island. So, Lise, I was hoping that I could pause and ask what sensations came up, what feelings came up, and have people respond. And I don't know what's the best way with 15 participants, whether people should chat in the QA or if it's possible to hear people's voices.
Yeah, so what we can do is if people can use the raise hand feature at the bottom of their Zoom window. So it's just the hand. And if you raise your hand, I will unmute you so that you can speak, and then remute, if that's okay.
Great.
Great.
Okay, so so what sensations did you feel in your body, and what feelings came up? Would anyone like to respond?
I would just like to say thank you for just even setting up the beginning to those poems. I realized at first I was saying to myself, oh, okay, I guess this is what we're going to do. And then when I relaxed into it, I realized, oh no, how important it is to just even set that up and realize how much you don't do that to take in things. So thanks for that part.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, Julia, you can go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I felt like tightness in my chest a little bit when you were reading the first poem, and like prickliness, kind of like a almost tearing up sensation in my eyes, but like a sort of prickly feeling.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Matt, or is Matt a panelist?
Matt's a panelist, but he's allowed to talk.
Only if you want to.
Hi, am I on?
Yes.
I really, it's a challenge to connect. I'm so out of practice of connecting to what I'm actually feeling in my body. I think the most striking part for me was the very ending of the haiku. I was set up for the failure of assimilation, and I love that it ends with a beautiful island. So the feeling, I guess, was one of simultaneously I was relieved, but also there's the challenge of it. The challenge of the immigrant's experience, that it's hard to find a place. So maybe a tightness, I'm not sure.
Thank you for that. Okay, so I'm going to take a couple more breaths to clear the energy. So the next two are about my sons. The first one is called Under Cedar Boughs. And again, I'm just going to remind you to still yourself and listen with your whole body, not just your ears. Under cedar boughs. Tomorrow we should walk in the rain, he says. Birds sound sweeter and cedar smells more pungent. Soft drips fill the spaces of our slowly spoken thoughts. We name ferns, deer and sword, licorice and lady. My belly wells up with regret for pulling up the roots he set down in these old forests. Tomorrow, a plane whisks my body into the other life, where neither of us ever felt at home. My place, the one his brother calls home every other week, is where we know which cabinet corner stashes the chocolate, which window is best for glimpsing the squirrels nabbing sunflowers. Home hides behind a fog of unrealized dreams and mistaken loves. Tomorrow, I'll make shelter for your dreams, my two boys. I will make up for lost time, and together we will learn to say rain in many tongues, in Renga, Scat, and in my mother's tongue, Hokkien. And in Hokkien, which my parents call Taiwanese, the way you say rain is doho, doho. So you can say that while you're muted, doho. And just imagine the drops of rain falling on your skin. 13. 13 is a lucky number in my book, a happy number by mathematical accounts. The sum of the square of its digits leads to the number 1. 13 is 8th in the Fibonacci sequence, and 8 is the luckiest number, at least by your grandma's Taiwanese accounting. You taught me about 13 in US history, the amendment that abolished slavery, equal to the number of English colonies. Coincidence or prophetic equation? At the age of 13.77 billion years, the universe might be feeling the in-betweenness you do, leaving 12, beginning your first teen years. In the quiet after cake and prizes, I'll hold you as I have all these 13 years of gratitude. You are my gift, my love, my happy one. Okay, the last of this set is called Wild Onions. It starts with a quote by Rumi. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. Greeting the sun, we touch the screens on our phones to locate our bodies. Check pockets for don't leave home without it devices. Eyes enthralled by machines that conjure faces, other places, others' homes. In the twittering 24/7 texting networked clouds of virtual connection, where do we hit pause? When do we ask who may suffer for our pleasure? Who sweats black tears to craft our treasures? Whose lives are made more beautiful by technological wonders? Out beyond the zeros and ones, there is a real field. Meet me there, and we will fill our pockets with acorns and rocks and stories. Listen to night critters and ache for the fragrance of wild ginger and onion flowers. So I'll pause and ask again if anyone would like to share what sensations came up in your body and what feelings.
Hi, this is Matt again. I'm sorry, as a panelist, I can't quite find the raise hand function. So I'll just go ahead and speak while there's a moment of silence.
Sure.
I really felt elation with that last poem. I love that Rumi quote, and I feel like your interpretation or inspiration from it allowed me to look forward to finding that place with people. There's a real lifting of my whole body relaxed, I think.
Thank you. All right. So the next set of poems, I'm just going to read 3 from a series called that I called the Storm series, which started with Hurricane Irene. I started trying to write a poem for every major storm that happened. And I wanted to mention at this point that my recent work has been really influenced by Resmaa Menakem, who is the author of My Grandmother's Hands, Racialized Trauma and the Pathway to Mending Our Hearts and Bodies. And that book it's about ways what needs to happen or what we can do collectively to end white body supremacy. He uses that term white body supremacy to bring our attention to the ways that racialized trauma are embodied, that racialized trauma lives in our bodies and it's carried on generation to generation through our bodies. So mending our bodies and our hearts has everything to do with mending racism and white supremacy in society. So that his book kind of fed really well into the ways that I was incorporating contemplative practice more and more in my poetry and in my art. And with these storm poems, I began to, this is where I began to use origami or paper folding and incorporate it into my poetry as a practice of cultural somatics. So that's a term that Menakem coined that refers to embodied ways of reclaiming culture and reclaiming those traditions from each of our cultures that can be healing and mending to our bodies and our cultures. So the first couple of poems are, again, haiku, and they're very short. And part of the reason for this was because the first one is called Harvey and the next one's Irma. And you might recall, this was in 2017, Hurricane Harvey happened in August, on August 25th, and Irma was September 6th. So they were very, very close together. And I just wanted to encapsulate something about each of these storms. So Harvey meandered slowly, then broke cyclonic records. Earth heaves, saves herself. I'm going to read that one. Each of these I'm going to read twice because they are so short. They're, kind of more concentrated. Harvey meandered slowly, then broke cyclonic records. Earth heaves, saves herself. Irma, no escape. Even presidential estates fall, all underwater. Irma, no escape. Even presidential estates fall, all underwater. This next one is called My People Sent Me a Canoe, and this was written, I started writing it in September at the, when Hurricane Dorian kind of ravaged the Caribbean. Last night, I'm going to start that again. And I'll just tell myself and invite you all to still our minds and still our bodies and listen with our whole beings. My people sent me a canoe. Last night, my people sent me a yellow canoe, floating gently into my dreams. Flash flood of flash floods, backyards surged into ravaging rivers, waves crested over the sill, broke glass, water rushed through, my arms reach instinctively for my babies, all grown by day, but in my dreams, time winds back, their vulnerable bodies hover near mine. We look for escape routes through the one window in the room. Flooded to our necks, we see the rescue vessel. How to fold a canoe. Fold in half, sides to center, accordion fold. Unfold one edge, corners to wrong side, fold in half, open to find gold. Fold tiny corners, unfold, push in to reverse fold. A fold in time, compressing 2,000 years, racing from Abaca Islands and Grand Bahama to Nova Scotia, Storm Dorian turned rain into ruins. Year 500, Taino people found refuge in the Bahamas. Year 1492, Columbus lands, commits genocide. Escaping enslaved people found refuge in the Bahamas. Seeing the US Army found refuge in the Bahamas. Tourists seeking escape from colonial life find refuge in the Bahamas. Year 219, population in the Bahamas, 90% Afro-Bahamian. The mud houses the nation's largest Haitian immigrant community. People, trade, risk for the necessity of a place to live. September 2019, the mud decimated by Storm Dorian. Disasters are not natural, he wrote. Disaster is designed into the homes of vulnerable people. We, settlers, safely inland, learned to design disaster for vulnerable people, building into their homes accumulated risk. Fold up sides, float canoe, burn canoe to send to our ancestors, fold another for Black lives, whisper, enough is enough, a prayer to undo unnatural disaster. So I'll ask if anyone would like to share what sensations came up, what feelings you felt in your body.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm one of the panelists. My name is actually Storm, so it's sort of appropriate that I'm responding at the moment. They were very powerful pieces. I thought it was really creative the way that you included the actual instructions on origami. I wasn't sure at first what you meant when you were talking about doing that. And I also just wanted to mention that I'm involved with an organization called the People's Music Network for Songs of Freedom and Struggle, which is at peoplesmusic.org. And we do song and poetry swaps that focus around the issues that you've been mentioning today. Last night we just did a hip hop and spoken word collaboration around racial oppression, archived on our Facebook page.
Okay, thanks, Storm. Barbara has a comment now.
On your poem, the first one that you had about the yellow canoe coming in your dreams, I really felt a sense of movement, like a wave through air that's not as visual as a wave on a body of water. It was very calming. And on your second haiku about Burma, devastating even presidential places, I think in this environment it's very powerful. And I'll leave my politics out of it, but it was very powerful for me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great, and Lisa has a comment. Lisa, if you want to unmute. Okay, that doesn't seem to be quite working.
It looks like we can unmute her, or I can.
Yeah, I've done that twice.
Okay.
Okay. Lisa, if you can hear me, there should be something across your screen saying, can you unmute? And while Lisa's doing that, Paul, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, do you run into people reacting to you and saying, why are you bringing up these political emotions? Or sometimes, people say, oh, why don't you write about puppies, something nice.
Yeah, I haven't so far, but I'm sure I will. Well, I'm sorry, Lisa, we're not able to hear you. Maybe you can type in comments in the Q&A or the chat window. And maybe I'll just go ahead and read the last piece.
Okay. Yes, the Q&A should be available to Lisa if you want to type in there. We'll read that out.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the last piece I'm going to read is a long poem. It's a long two-part poem that I think of as in the context of slow art. I've been working on this poem for several years, and it's on its way to becoming kind of multi-voiced spoken word piece, and I really hear music with it, but I'm not a composer, so I'm looking for a collaborator to make that happen. This was the first poem that that brought together the origami instructions with the poetry, and it's called "A Thousand Gifts of Decolonial Love." Movement 1, Paper Cranes Instructional. To prepare for funerals, we fold paper gold. To prepare for eating peanuts, Dad folds paper boxes for holding shells. Mom folds paper cups for holding water. Tzu-chi is how we say paper folding in Hokkien. We fold useful things, sacred things, paper cups, paper gold. Now we fold cranes to remember. First 4 folds, mountain and valley, edge to edge, corner to corner, fold memory into paper, unflatten 2D field into 3D space, precarity held in paper form. We fold 1,000 for a wish to remember and honor hibakusha, survivors of atomic radiation. We fold to honor islanders everywhere, drowning, existence endangered, like 11 of 15 crane families. Next, bring valley to valley, reverse fold a diamond, like the crane's migratory formation, open end facing your heart. Kite fold, like diaper fold, wings to center. Flip over, repeat, caress the folds, score creases with thumbnail. From this side of the ocean, across miles of mountains and valleys, I fold, unfold, refold, shrink the distance between my home on Turtle Island and Taiwan, my birthplace, between the Japanese Empire and occupied Taiwan, an island someone once called mudball in the sea. Mom called it a speck, a booger, picked from the flaring nostril of China. Now fold down a hat, like a bamboo farmer's hat my grandfather wore in the peanut fields. Unfold, flip over, repeat. Petal fold, like a rosebud blooming, move slow as drifting clouds. Unfold wings, bend back, gently nudge apart an opening, spread wide like lips rounding to catch a drop of rain. Caress edges, flip over, repeat. Black-tipped, widespread wings, spread wings to fly like the lost Siberian crane that landed in Huang Chunsun's field one lazy June day, first sighting ever in Taiwan. The farmer named his rice in honor of his new snail-eating friend, Jinho. Such a majestic celebrity of endangerment. Is beauty enough to shield it from extinction? How many folds to make a crane? How many cranes to instill cultural memory? How many grandmothers, grandchildren to transmit culture? Find the legs, prime the point, fold edges of legs towards the center line, leaving a margin for layers. Every fold multiplies layers, density. This fold times 4, then open each side. Paper folding is performance art, pop culture of another era, These moves a language of their own, a carrier of cultural knowledge, like shepherd's knots accounting for sheep bleating in green fields. How many post-invasion years or decades will it take to obliterate cultural memory? How many generations of dreaming to restore forgotten language, culture, ceremony? We enfold the colonizer's art, the master's tools. They may never dismantle his house, but could this technology bring to life another kind of home? Animal home, vegetable, fungal, spirit home. Raise the legs, reverse fold into neck and tail. Each reverse fold makes slim, symmetrical extensions. You choose which will be the head. Fold, unfold, refold the prayer for the Siberian crane, the most critically endangered of 11 sister cranes, pushed closer to extinction every warming year, their marshy homes drained for farming, their existence made more precarious by the rising heat of our extractive habits, by our insatiable pumps sucking black gold out of sacred soil, and water, the bluest gold from our earthly commons. Last fold makes a beak, sounds the alert call. Imagined empires break apart clans, families, economies of conquest, erect walls between communities, interrupt intergenerational bonds, sever storylines carried by our grandmothers, and we resist, we fold, we hold onto ancestral memory, manual memory, muscle knowledge, plant medicine, animal relations, interbeing, sun, moon, yin-yang cycles, always moving like salty waves, falling, rising, folding, unfolding into infinite timelessness. Folding a beak is an act of resistance, a reversal of space and time. We can make flesh of cultural memory and release a revolutionary chorus of all beings. Elegy for Sadako's mother. September 11th, again. We count the days, the years since. 1, 2, 3, 10, 15 years since 9/11, 2001. Sadako's mother counts 1, 2, 3 years, 7 decades plus 1 year, 1 month, and 6 days after the so-called little boy bomb was dropped, blew her daughter out the window. 71 years after she believed Sadako would survive unharmed. I drive north, September 11th, making a great escape, slow flight from the home that was never my dream. Daydreams interrupted by insistent radio reports, tolling bells, names, reports of that morning 15 years ago when Homeland Security replaced the American dream, the dream that lured my family to settle on Turtle Island, to settle in the land of the wild onion, ancestral lands of the nations of the three fires, the Potawatomi, Ottawa, and Chippewa. My hands hold still, grasp the wheel, fingers still folding, unfolding the 151st crane. 1 paper crane, 2 paper crane, 3 paper crane fold. Corner to corner, unfold, reverse. Her name slips through memory as fingers gently pry open petal fold. Sadako, settled into muscle memory 1,000 times. This sequence passed on from one hand to another, one generation to the next, in creases, unfolding, folding, telling, retelling. She survived 1 year, 2 years, 10 years after the mushroom clouded over her innocent years. And then the blisters broke. In hospital, she learned the legend of paper cranes, 1,000 for the gift of 1 longer life. Now thousands fold cranes for peace. I wake up dreaming of Sadako's mother, searching for her daughter, making slow flight from ground zero. Her brave arms snatch her tiny daughter, running from the ghost of the mushrooming cloud, surviving. Did she see her baby's small body fly through the window? Did her heart pause, breath reverse when they passed the safety zone, skin unburnt, pinkish still, alive? Did she hold in a sigh of relief every morning Sadako awoke and smiled and walked to school? And did a small fissure in her heart shelter the truth every day since August 6th? The truth she kept from Sadako, hoping to shield her daughter from the pain that would end her short but not small life. How did her mother count the days? How many cranes did she fold, each crane a dance against death? A knot in the string of days she survived as Hibakusha. I fold in memory of Hibakusha, in praise of survivors who warn us of our own mass extinction. I fold for the living Siberian crane, whose defense call heralds loss of her homeland, my homeland, the homeland of the Huanya, survivors of genocide, linguicide by generations of colonizers, from Dutch to Japanese to Chinese. Can we make peace with one another? Hope for more than survival? Can we live in reciprocal care with each other? Indigenous and settler, human and crane, snail, fish, fungi, cloud, moon, sun. Let's put aside the weapons of mass destruction and fold cranes, 1,000 cranes for peace, millions for uncountable seasons, cycles of life and death and life again. I fold for Orchid Island, southeast of Taiwan, Yami home turned nuclear dump site. Honshu Island, where the bomb known as Little Boy instantly disintegrated 80,000 humans. And how many red-crowned cranes? How many snails? I fold for Bikini Atoll, forever scarred by US nuclear weapons testing. Pu'uloa Oahu, renamed Pearl Harbor by US occupiers. Turtle Island, where indigenous resurgence sings of decolonial love. I fold 1,000 for Black lives, 1,000 for missing and murdered indigenous women and girls, 1,000 in honor of Arab Spring, 1,000 for water protectors, earth protectors at Ocheti Sakuin. I fold for our children, for water, for life, and call us to rise up, spread wings and fly. For whom do you fold? And I forgot to mention that when I perform this poem, I usually do it while I'm folding a paper crane. And I've tried a couple of times to teach people how to fold by reading this poem. And it doesn't work that well because if it's the first time you're folding cranes, it's difficult to get it on this, first go. But yeah, I just wanted you to imagine that I was folding. It was a little too much with, the technology and being on Zoom to try to fold and read at the same time. So that's the final piece. I think at this point, we just want to open it up for some Q&A.
Okay, I think Lisa has fixed her mic. Do you want to try with your comment now? Lisa, we're not hearing you. Are you there?
I see in the Q&A, she says, I don't have a mic.
Well, that's interesting, since it's unmuted, but okay. Sorry about that technical difficulty you're having there. Did she type in a question?
No, I don't see one.
I'd like to jump in now and just say, wow. A second wow. That was a long piece with so much in it in terms of history and how important it is to hear everyone's history to get a better story of the stories that we learn in quote history class. Oh, this we won the war or something,
Mm.
you know, from growing up being here in the States
Mhm.
to what it actually meant or what was going on for anybody there. And also just your thing about the islands and how people perceive different lands or different countries, and this constant setup of what today is going on of other,
Mhm.
you know, that country isn't as good as the other country. And
Mhm.
oh, the people who live on that country are less than us. And all of, or I should feel less or something, you know. I mean, there's so many, I want other people to jump in, but I just wanted to say there was so many things that you had in that piece throughout it that just resonated really with things that are being said today, my own feelings about how to put all those different things together and how to have a much wider perspective of stuff.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll give Lisa a chance to see if her mic is working.
Yeah, I just connect. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can at last.
Hey, this is that mic I used before. Okay, because my desktop doesn't have one, so I didn't think I'd be able to say anything. But I just love those poems, and I think from the very beginning, I love that you asked us to listen with our whole bodies, and I would have said something, but I didn't have the mic then. But that feels so important, and then just, it goes together with everything that Resmaa Menakem says about my grandmother's hands, that you're talking about shaping these cranes as an act of revolution. I just love that. In fact, now I'm going to attend your workshop because I'm not really an arty person. But now that I know that this is about shape-shifting with your hands, that's a manual. It's, I talked in my talk about, the women's revolution as being so embodied,
Mhm.
but there's ways in which we weren't embodied. And this thing about crafting with your hands and feeling like it's a way to remake the world, I just love that. And the last two poems you read just really, they blew me away, because my present time obsession is with, species extinction and ecological collapse. So and yet this also, we feel that there is something we can do about it,
Mhm.
even in our own homes and with our own hands,
Mhm.
which is wonderful.
Thank you for that comment. I've found that in the writing of these poems, I do a lot of research as I'm writing, before I'm writing, and as I'm writing. And the research really, in fact, the Yellow Canoe poem, I'm still kind of tweaking, and it's, I did a lot of research for that just in the last couple of weeks. And what I'm finding is, when I started folding cranes, and then I have a poem with frogs, and I was teaching people how to fold frogs, and I found that, I was saying the act of shaping these animals does connect you with these species in a way that, you know in school we learn about different species mostly through books, or probably a lot of you remember dissecting frogs.
Yeah.
That's a really colonial way
Yeah.
of learning about other species.
Exactly.
So I've really found that, um, you know learning about the sounds that frogs make and which frogs are keystone species, that learning is really embodied because of this process of paper folding and then really working with the language in the poems.
That's really, it's a very different approach. e- I've never heard anyone talk about origami that way either. I don't know if this is unique to you or.
I think it's pretty unique. I don't think I've found, there are other origami kind of activists, people who use paper folding there's actually a huge field of paper folding. There are a lot of physicists that, use paper folding as a kind of way to think about space and how, folds in space and engineering. But I think what I'm doing is kind of different from that.
Mm, yeah.
I see a couple of other questions in the Q&A.
Yes, I think Karen was next.
Yeah.
Karen, go ahead.
Yeah, hi there. I just wanted to ask, I missed, or could you tell me the name of that last piece again?
Yeah, it's called 1,000 Gifts of Decolonial Love.
Okay.
And 1,000 gifts is referred to, the 1,000 is referred to in the poem because that's the legend of, you know, if you fold 1,000 cranes, you're granted a wish. So that's where that comes from, the decolonial love. And by the way, I should mention, I'm a total geek, kind of with my poetry. I footnote. My poems are all annotated. So this one, Decolonial Love, is annotated. It's a reference to a book by Leanne Simpson that's called Islands of Decolonial Love. And her use of that term is a reference to, oh my gosh, I suddenly forgot the name of, it's another author who used that term as a way to talk about the importance of developing love for each other among colonized peoples, because one of the things that colonization does is it separates us from each other. It's, you know, and that's what colorism is about. That's you know, the model minority myth kind of sets Asians apart from each other in a competitive, you know, to kind of feed into the competitive hierarchy of capitalism.
Right. I'll tell you that had so much in it, and I do think it is so important for us Caucasians to expose ourselves to other points of view. I lived in Japan for 4 years, so I have a great respect for the culture, and I've learned so much about Asian lifestyles of all types, and I'm continuing to learn, but there were a couple of lines in the early part of your poem that really jumped out to me, and I just wanted to mention them to you.
Yeah.
At one point you ask, is beauty enough to shield it from extinction?
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking of not just the one bird, but all of the planet, everything. Is it enough? You know, and this is what we're grappling with. And then I loved the line where you said the rising heat from our extracted habits. You know, I mean, we just have to look at, there's so much blame to go around, the way we live our lives, the commercialism, the capitalism. Is there time to change it? I don't know, but I so admire your radical attempt, excuse me, to do this by folding cranes and by writing that piece. It's a big piece. I thank you for it.
Thank you. I'm seeing another question in the Q&A from Barbara. JuPong, I appreciate how your last poem weaves together cranes, little boy, 9/11, etc. Truly a poem I'd read or hear again, and like the addition of the questions, sad and hopeful at the same time. Thank you, Barbara. Are there any other questions or comments?
I'll invite the panelists to jump in if you want. You won't cut anybody off. And I will read, there's a comment in here that says amazing poems, which you were probably too shy to read, but there you go. Paul, you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, with all the present, unfortunately, person who's our president doing racial slurs about the virus and bringing this unnecessary relationship to lumping Asian cultures, which our culture has done a lot, you know. So just related to the last what Barbara was talking about, it was great to hear you're putting it all together in some of these poems and storytelling. I don't know if you want to comment on that at all, or do you feel you're in that genre of poets who tell stories, or do you think that a lot of poets don't see that? You know, you have abstract poems, you have poems that are like, you know, so just wanted to state that I found them very storytelling.
Thank you. I definitely see myself as a storyteller, you know, poetic storyteller. And I actually often incorporate story circle process in my performances. So this poem, when I performed this in Portland, Oregon, I did a week-long kind of residency where I performed this a few times during the week, and so people were helping to fold the cranes that went into the creation of the installation. And when I performed this piece, I would open up a story circle after this, and I would really like to do that in different places here in the Valley, because it's amazing, you know, the stories that people tell in that after hearing this and then in that context. So we heard from a vet, we heard from a Japanese woman who had worked with indigenous youth in Alaska folding paper cranes, and you know, all kinds of stories. So yes, I definitely, storytelling is an important part of my poetry and artistic process. And I most love it when my poems or my art inspires or, you know, opens up a space where everyone feels they can tell their own story. Lisa is asking if these poems are published, and if so, can we see the book? They are not published because that's a hump I have to get over. I think I have this thing. I feel like, you know, I call myself a performance poet, and I'm a little afraid that once it's down on paper, it can't change. So that's my big block. But I've been working on it. I think I have enough now to make a book. So I will be trying to get it out there.
I'll publish you. Human Air Published would publish you. So let's talk.
Okay.
And just as a little side, so Sonia Sanchez,
Yes.
she was reading, and a friend of mine, Dina Sanders, walked behind her when we were doing she was doing the reading, and she was holding up her book, and she stopped because she realized she was seeing all these crossed out and written in the margin that even though she had the book, if she had something else she wanted to say when she was performing it, she did. So don't feel held back. I think life changes, as you know, but yes, let's talk about publishing the book.
All right, thank you.
I just wanted to say that it was a very powerful, well-crafted assembly of poetry that you presented today.
Thank you very much. Well, Lisa, I'm thinking maybe we could end so I can have a tiny little break before the workshop.
Yeah, that's great. So stay with us for the next hour. JuPong is going to teach us how to fold canoe. And in the meantime, I am going to give her a break and take the spotlight video so that she doesn't have to sit there. And thank the sponsors and give her time to set up her her camera. So one camera is going to be on the origami so you can see it being folded, and one on her so you can see her speaking. So that's a little complex. So I'm going to ask all the panelists to please shut your video off now. Just put the stop video in the corner so that we can just have JuPong in the gallery view. So while she's doing that, I will thank our sponsors who have been just fantastic. Greenfield Cooperative Bank, the Massachusetts Cultural Council, a state agency through its local cultural councils of Northfield, Bernardston, Gill, and Warwick. And that means that people from Northfield, Bernardston, Gill, and Warwick have decided that they want to support this festival, so thank you. The Kiwanis Club of Northfield, the Dickinson Memorial Library, the Northfield Historical Commission, and Greenfield Savings Bank. So we will be right back for the workshop, which runs until 1. And then we have the Nature Poetry event at 1. And then we have National Beat Poet Laureate Paul Richmond, who finally gets to speak for more than 15 minutes at a time. So we'll see you soon. And I'm going to just stop my video here for a minute while we take a break, okay? Thanks.